So the most frequently dislocated joint in the body is the shoulder. Shoulder dislocations are actually very easy to do. Now, some people are more prone to shoulder dislocations than others. So in today's video, I'm going to talk to you about shoulder dislocations, what they are, what you can do about it, surgical options, and what you can do after surgery to give your shoulder the best chances of becoming almost like a normal shoulder again, increasing on stability and trying to prevent shoulder dislocations from happening again. Now, if you're here, I would imagine you've probably experienced a dislocation. Hopefully your shoulder is not dislocated right now and you're trying to figure out how to put it back in. If that's the case, go and see someone professional, a doctor, a hospital. If you are here, I would imagine it's probably not going to be your first dislocation. Now, once you've had a dislocation, you are more likely to have recurrent dislocations. Once it's happened 2 or 3 times, your shoulder is going to be incredibly susceptible for more dislocations. What can happen over time is, if it keeps happening, you're probably a good candidate for a surgical procedure where they tighten up the joint. Now, let me explain. The shoulder, so this is a shoulder joint. Okay, so this is a right shoulder. So as you're looking at me right now, this is my arm bone. This is my shoulder blade. This is the collarbone. This is the front and this is the back. The shoulder joint is made up of a ball and socket joint. So you have a ball attached to the end of the bone, and then you've got a socket. Now the shoulder ball and socket joint is very shallow. So it's like this, which allows for a lot of movement within the joint. That's why our shoulders can go so far in terms of all directions, as opposed to something like the hip, which is also a ball and socket joint, but the socket is a much deeper joint and it encompasses the ball of the bone so much deeper that it's a lot harder to dislocate. So you've got the socket of the joint, and then surrounding that is a fibrous, like cartilage layer called the labrum. Now, in a dislocation, there's 3 main ways that the shoulder can dislocate. The most common is front, so anterior dislocation. It can also dislocate backwards, and it can also dislocate downwards. The position, the most common position for the shoulder to dislocate in is this. So if you found yourself in this position and somehow then there's been an impact, so let's say you went to throw something and then someone behind you came and nudged you in the back of the shoulder, that's kind of the most frequent cause of a dislocation. So being in this position and then some kind of impact will usually pop the shoulder out. As that happens, the labrum, which is, you can't really see it on this model that well, but it kind of goes all the way around the outside of this socket. The labrum can become torn. There's not really that much you can do unless surgically they repair it. You'll probably go through a phase of some well, if it dislocates, you'll usually have to go to hospital, get it put back in. Then you go through a phase of rehab, trying to strengthen it. If that doesn't get better, then they might operate to try and repair some of that torn labrum. Now, if it keeps happening, you are a good candidate for a surgical procedure where the surgeons go in and sort of reattach the labrum, tighten it up, and they can also tighten up the tendons. So tendons are basically where the muscles of the rotator cuff, or tendons are where basically muscles attach to the bone. So it's what attaches the muscle to the bone. In the case of the shoulder, the surgeons may go in and tighten up some of the tendons of the rotator cuff. So this creates a more stable shoulder, but it also means it reduces your range of movement. So let's say you've gone in for a surgical procedure. You could expect that the rehab phase, the recovery phase, could be up to about 6 months. Usually during that time, you'll go through some physiotherapy. In my experience, most people who have had shoulder dislocation repairs tend to actually have then quite tight and restricted shoulder movement. This is partly because they're guarding it. The fear of having that shoulder dislocate again is so much that they don't want to put themselves into these positions, understandably. So the muscles become very short, they tense when they start going into these positions. So if this is you, if you have had frequent dislocations and you've had surgery, I would say it's a good idea to go and get yourself some regular massage, keeping the shoulder in a neutral position, so not up on the bed like this. Try and get those muscles a little bit more relaxed. Now, obviously you don't want to increase the range of motion so much that you're likely to have this happen again. But at the same time, you don't want to be so restricted that you've got no movement in your arm at all. I'm working with someone right now who's had an operation. We're trying to get the shoulder a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more mobile before we go into the phase of strengthening and retraining stability. So the next phase after you've improved your flexibility will be to improve stability. And I'm going to go through exercises and stretches for shoulder dislocations in an upcoming video. So stay tuned for that if it's not already published. If it is published, I will link it up here. If it's not published, then stay tuned for that. Now, just a word of warning, if you are new to dislocations or you've had it done before, if it pops out, do not put it back in yourself. Now, there's a really good reason for this. Around your humerus, around the head or the neck of the humerus, there are some very important blood vessels. If you pop your shoulder back in on your own, there's a possibility that you could pinch the blood vessels or even a nerve in the shoulder, which will then possibly lead to the poor blood supply of the bone, causing death of bone tissue. And that can lead to further complications down the road. So if you have had a dislocation, go and get it put in by doctors, because what they will then do once it's back in is test for your blood supply. And if there's any issues, then they can deal with it then and there. So please don't go putting it back in yourself. So guys, does that all make sense? Please let me know in the comment section below. Hopefully you've got a slightly better idea of what dislocations are, what they're caused by, and what you can do. If you've had a dislocation but you've not had surgery, definitely consider strengthening your shoulder or strengthening the muscles around them, particularly the muscles that stabilize the shoulder, such as the rotator cuff. I will again do a video on that in an upcoming video where you can see all the exercises to strengthen and stabilize. Please let me know if you've got any questions. If I have earned a like, then please give me a thumbs up. Otherwise guys, I will see you in the next video. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you soon.